Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? This time, we're tackling a theory that's shaking up how we think about gravity. You know, the force that supposedly holds us all down.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. We're diving into the Grand Fibonacci SMF-RVS theory, and it proposes a completely different way of thinking about gravity. Get this. It says that instead of a pull, it's a push.
Whoa, a push, huh? That's a real head scratcher. But before we go too deep into this new theory, let's talk about something more familiar, something essential to understanding how things move in space. I'm talking about the Tchaikovsky equation. Maybe you've heard of it.
Oh, absolutely, the Tchaikovsky equation. It's like the ultimate rule book. It
Uh-huh.
covers how everything moves, from rockets to planets. It's super important for planning space missions and figuring out how things move under gravity's influence.
Yeah, okay, I get it. The Tchaikovsky equation, it's important stuff. But if it's working so well, why are we even questioning it?
Well, the thing is, the way we currently use the Tchaikovsky equation, it relies on that old idea of gravity as a pull,
Hmm.
right? Coming from massive objects.
Hmm.
But the Grand Fibonacci theory, this is where things get interesting. It challenges that whole basic idea.
So instead of planets and stars pulling on each other, this new theory is saying they're being pushed apart. I mean, how does that even work?
See, that's the really cool part. The Grand Fibonacci theory suggests that space isn't just empty, like, well, nothingness. It says space is full of these things called subtle magnetic fields, or SMFs.
SMFs. Okay, so not like the magnets we have on our fridges.
No, no, not at all. Think of them more like invisible currents, running through the fabric of space.
Okay, so there's more to space than we can see with our eyes. We've got these invisible SMFs. But how do these SMFs actually create a push?
All right, so this is where the relative vacuum of space, or RVS, comes in. See, even though the vacuum of space seems empty, it's not totally void, right? It's got these variations in density, and it's those variations that, when they interact with the SMFs, can create pressure.
Pressure. So it's kind of like a giant cosmic ocean then,
Yeah.
where like the SMFs are the currents and the RVS is the water.
You got it.
Wow. So instead of planets being pulled towards each other by gravity, they're actually being pushed around by these cosmic currents? I gotta say, that's a pretty wild concept.
It is wild, for sure. But what's even more fascinating is that this push, it seems to work at every level of the universe.
Wait, so you're saying this applies to, like, everything, from tiny little satellites all the way up to giant galaxies swirling through space?
You got it. And this is where this thing called Fibonacci scaling comes in. It's basically the idea that the interplay between those SMFs and the RVS, it works the same way regardless of the scale.
Okay, so Fibonacci scaling is like what, the universal language of this cosmic push. That's pretty elegant, I have to say. But how does all of this connect back to that Tchaikovsky equation we were talking about earlier? I mean, if gravity is a push and not a pull, wouldn't that totally change the equation?
It absolutely would. And that's actually one of the most exciting parts of this whole grand Fibonacci theory. It's saying that the Tchaikovsky equation, which can get, pretty complex with all its assumptions about gravitational pulls, might actually be a lot simpler than we thought.
Hold on a sec. You're telling me this new theory could actually simplify one of the most fundamental equations in astrophysics? I mean, what would that even look like?
Well, instead of needing all those crazy complicated calculations based on a pull, we might be able to just, predict the motion of objects in space just by accounting for this cosmic push. It would be a total game changer, a completely different way of understanding, how everything moves up there.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This is huge. But if we can really simplify the Tchaikovsky equation like this, I mean, what would that mean for space travel? Would it make things like easier, faster, maybe even cheaper?
Now, those are the questions, aren't they?
Mm,
And that's what we'll dig into next time.
I can't wait. Welcome back, everyone. So before we went away, we were just starting to grasp this crazy idea, right? This grand Fibonacci theory saying that gravity is a push, not a pull. And, we kind of left off wondering, like, how could this change space travel, if it's even true?
Well, that's where it gets really exciting. Imagine a future where instead of fighting against gravity, we're like riding these cosmic currents, right? The ones created by the SMFs and the RVS.
Mm.
Like instead of rockets, we've got these space sailboats, basically, just harnessing the power of the universe to get around.
Okay, that's a pretty awesome image. Cosmic sailboats. But how would that even work? Like, would we be able to, steer? Could we actually get where we wanted to go?
I mean, think about sailing on the ocean, right? Sailors don't just go wherever the wind blows them. They study the wind patterns, the currents, and they use that knowledge to chart a course.
Yeah.
So similarly, if we can map out these SMFs, understand how they how they work with the RVS, we could maybe create these like push corridors.
Which corridors, like space highways or something? That sounds kind of sci-fi, to be honest. Wouldn't we need like a crazy amount of control over these forces? I mean, is that even possible?
Well, yeah, it might seem far-fetched now, but who knows what the future holds,
Yeah.
right? I mean, just think 100 years ago, people thought human flight was like impossible. And look at us now, launching rockets and everything. This grand Fibonacci theory, it just opens up so many possibilities.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to, to explore them and see where they lead.
So you're saying that if we really understand these SMFs and the RVS, like really understand them, we could be traveling through space in ways we can't even like imagine yet. That's incredible. But what about, right now? What about our current space programs? Would this new way of thinking about gravity, would it affect those at all?
Oh, absolutely. Even without those futuristic push corridors, this theory could still have a huge impact. Remember we were talking about how the Tchaikovsky equation can be simplified?
Yeah, right. If we take this cosmic push into account, maybe we don't need all those crazy complex calculations based on, on the pole.
Exactly. And that simplification, it could lead to, well, more efficient space travel. We could maybe use less fuel to get where we're going.
Lighter spacecraft, less fuel. That would be a game changer, especially for like deep space missions, right? We could go farther, explore more, maybe even set up permanent bases on other planets.
Exactly. It's a whole new era of space exploration, potentially.
Now that's something I'd like to see. Space colonies, here we come. But hold on a second, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We've been so focused on space travel, I almost forgot about another mind-blowing thing this theory affects: black holes.
Ugh. Yes, black holes. Even the name, right, makes you think of this, like inescapable pull. The most powerful force in the universe, nothing can escape, not even light. But what if? What if that pull is actually a push?
Wait, so black holes, the things that suck everything in, they're actually pushing things away. I don't get it. How does that even make sense?
Now, remember how we talked about the SMFs and the RVS, how they interact to create that push? Well, imagine a place in space where those SMFs are like super strong and the RVS is incredibly dense.
Okay, so it's like what? A zone of super intense cosmic push.
Yeah, precisely. And according to this theory, that push, it could be so powerful that it creates a barrier and nothing can get through. That barrier, that could be what we see as the event horizon of a black hole.
So instead of being pulled into a black hole, you'd be like repelled, pushed away. Man, that really changes things. But wouldn't that also change how we think about, what black holes do? What about those jets of energy we see shooting out of them?
That's a great question, and it's one we'll get into right after. Well, we'll get into it right now. No need for breaks today.
Okay, great. I'm all ears. Okay, so we're back, and we're trying to wrap our heads around this whole black hole thing, right? If they're pushing stuff away, how do we explain those massive jets of energy, the ones we see shooting out of them?
Yeah, that's a question that's been puzzling scientists for a long time, but this grand Fibonacci theory, it gives us a new way to think about it. Remember those super intense SMFs? And the really dense RVS we talked about, the ones that create that powerful outward push around a black hole.
Yeah, like a cosmic force field pushing everything away.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So imagine now you've got all this matter, right? Gas, dust, whatever, and it's trying to get close to this force field. It's like a cosmic standoff, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So you've got a black hole pushing outward, and then you've got the matter trying to move in.
So it's not really that the matter's being sucked in then, but more like it's getting caught in this cosmic tug-of-war.
Exactly. And all that pushing and pulling, it creates a ton of, turbulence and friction.
Yeah.
And that generates a huge amount of heat and energy.
Ah, I see. So those jets we see, they're not like matter escaping from inside the black hole. It's more like a byproduct of all this cosmic wrestling going on at the edges.
That's the idea. The grand Fibonacci theory is saying that those jets are like, almost like pressure valves, right? Releasing all that pent-up energy that's created from this cosmic standoff.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. But then that raises another question. If black holes are pushing things away, wouldn't they be constantly growing, pushing the whole universe apart?
That's a really good point. And that brings us to another cool idea from the grand Fibonacci theory. This idea of a dynamic equilibrium in the universe.
Dynamic equilibrium, that sounds complicated.
It's not as bad as it sounds. Basically, the theory says that while black holes are doing all this pushing outward, there are other forces out there too. And those forces are like counteracting that push, keeping everything in balance.
So it's kind of like that cosmic tug of war we were talking about, but like on a universal scale. What are these other forces, though? The ones keeping the black holes in check?
That's a question scientists are still working on. Some people think it might be the combined push of all the SMFs and RVS everywhere in the universe, right? And together they create this cosmic web that holds everything together.
A cosmic web made out of pushing forces. That's
Right.
that's a pretty wild thought. So instead of the universe expanding because of the Big Bang, now we're thinking of it as this system that's constantly pushing and pulling, expanding and contracting. And it's all held together by this invisible web of forces.
Yeah. It's a totally different way of looking at things. And it opens up so many new possibilities for understanding the universe. And who knows, maybe someday we'll even figure out how to use these pushing forces ourselves.
Well, I can tell you one thing. The idea of being a cosmic web surfer just got added to my bucket list. But before we go full sci-fi here, let's bring things back down to Earth for a second. What does all this grand Fibonacci theory, I mean, what does it mean for us regular folks, the ones just looking up at the stars and wondering?
I think it's a good reminder that, the universe is full of mysteries, right? And what we know about it is always changing. It's like a challenge to question everything we think we know, to keep exploring and to never stop being curious.
Yeah, it's like we've been given this whole new way of looking at the cosmos, and suddenly everything's different.
And for you, that means that the future of space exploration, of understanding where we fit in the grand scheme of things, it's wide open. It's a future full of possibilities, just waiting to be discovered.
Well, I don't know about you all, but I'm feeling pretty inspired right now. It's like we've been given a cosmic invitation to explore, to push the limits of what we know, and to never stop asking those big crazy questions.
And who knows, maybe one of you listening right now, maybe you'll be the one to make the next big discovery, right? The one to unravel the next piece of this cosmic puzzle.
That's what's so great about science, isn't it? It's a journey that never ends, and we're all invited to be a part of it.
So keep looking up, keep asking those questions, and never stop exploring. The universe is waiting.
That's it for this deep dive, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep those minds open and stay curious.